Think about the discoveries of forensic science, genetic research, laser technology, quantum physics, atomic and nuclear energy, fiber optics, global telecommunications, and medical research, and still man lives like an animal. Man has not come up with a formula to be able to deal harmoniously with other human beings and to resolve differences without slaughtering the rest of his human beings. Man still hasn't come up with that ability. Think about the many food substances and the aquamarine substances that make up the common air that we breathe every second and minute of our lives, and the many sources of fundamental energy that human civilization depends upon. Think about the many different types of energy that the human being needs just to live. Tell me, how is all of this possible without a power and an intelligence outside of the universe and the human phenomena? At this point, I'd like my brother to recite a few verses from the Quran. And I just want you to be patient, because when we give a proof from the Quran, we want you to hear the medicine. Now, you won't know what he's saying right away because it's in Arabic. But out of respect for the revelation, I want him to recite it. Then I'm going to translate it for you because it's relative to my topic.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون.
I want to remind you or tell you that this revelation, the Quran, was revealed 1424 years ago to an illiterate. That means a man who had no schooling, a man born in the desert, an Arab, chosen by Almighty God to receive a revelation. A man like Jesus, a man like John the Baptist, a man like Zechariah, a man like Isaac, a man like Ismail, a man like Moses, a man like Abraham, a man like Noah, a man like Adam, alayhi salam, peace and blessing be upon him. A man, a messenger, and a prophet. Now this Quran that he recited is recited by 1.4 billion people in the world and memorize from cover to cover 6,626 verses by literally millions of Muslims. Not a few, but millions. And it is the ambition of every Muslim to have a son or a daughter in their life that memorizes this entire book. So it's not a phenomenon, except that this book was memorized and preserved in the life of the one that received it from God. And in his lifetime, it was memorized and it was retained and never changed and intact until now. Look what it says. I gave you some statistics, and the basis of it was from the Quran. The Quran says, and a sign for them is the dead earth. It is brought back to life, and then from it springs fruits and grains of all kinds which they eat. And we place therein gardens and palm trees and grapevines, and cause them to burst forth therein some springs that come from the ground that man doesn't control himself. And there he creates his industry, that they may eat of the fruit created by God, and their hands have not produced it at all. So will they be grateful? Exalted is he who created all life in pairs. So the Quran establishes that everything in life has been created in pairs, whether plants, whether animals, whether insects, whether fish, or bacteria. Has science ratified that everything in life has been created in pairs? Yes, the Quran said that 1,424 years ago. And of course the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, he wasn't a botanist. He wasn't a geologist. He didn't have a microscope. He had no way of knowing that. The only way a human being 1,424 years could know that is through the help and inspiration of the one who is the creator from the beginning. Because that fact that everything has been created in pairs was only discovered 78 years ago, scientifically. Exalted is he, Almighty God, who created all things in pairs, from what the earth grows, and from themselves, the human beings, and from that which they do not know. That means, here the Quran is establishing that there are some creatures, maybe micro creatures, that are also created in pairs that the human being doesn't know about. And a sign for them is the night that we extract from the light of the day. Now this is the phenomena itself that we have now discovered from going outer space. When we go out in space, we realize that the day is extracted from the night, not the night from the day. We realize that night is first and day is second, although we say day-night. We realize now that time is really inverted, but you have to go out in space to be able to see it. That's why in Australia, we are sitting here at 10:30 in the evening, isn't it? In London, it is now 10:30 in the morning, but yesterday. And in America, it's 5:30 in the morning, yesterday. But we just discovered that dimension of time recently, didn't we? We didn't know that before, but the Quran establishes that, because listen to this. And the sun runs its own course towards its stopping point, and that is the determination of the exalted in might, the knowing. And the moon, we have determined for it phases until it returns, appearing like a date stalk. Now think about it. Here the Quran has established that the sun runs its course along with its other bodies which carries it. What bodies does the sun carry with it? It's 9 planets. Is that correct? Based upon the movement of the sun and the planets around it, we establish what? Time, isn't it? And based upon the movement of the moon around the earth, we establish what? Another set of time. Now, how did the Quran establish this 1,424 years ago, while the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, he didn't have any telescope,